The only thing more steep than Embracer Group's sudden rise is their rapid decline. One look at their stock price over time and you can see when Embracer were on track to become another huge AAA publisher. They went from being a relatively unknown name to a big player in the games industry to an embarrassment overnight, thanks to their top brass trying to speedrun the process to become the next EA or Take-Two. They may have acquired plenty of gaming companies and the rights to many popular IPs, but their strategy seemed to be to spend as much money as possible with no rhyme or reason. As their plans went up in smoke, Embracer's lack of strategy and dumb decisions led to thousands of people being laid off, studios with decades of history being closed, anticipated games getting canned with series left in limbo, and a symbol of greed in the modern games industry. This is the story of Embracer Group, gaming's dumbest company. For 2022, Embracer Group weren't exactly a household name, but their history dates back to 2011 when the company was founded, although it went by a few different names, being Nordic Games and then THQ Nordic. They are known as the publisher of Destroy All Humans, Darksiders, MX vs ATV, and the Gothic series of games. Wikipedia mentions Alone in the Dark, but this only refers to the 2024 reboot that no one remembers. After obtaining the THQ trademark, they changed their name to THQ Nordic to cash in on some brand recognition. While Embracer is known as a leviathan that gobbles up any moderately successful publisher, as Nordic Games and THQ Nordic, they were still acquiring anyone they could. Like Koch Media in 2018, including its subsidiaries such as Deep Silver, which also own the subsidiaries of 4A Games, Volition, Free Radical, and Starbreeze Studios to name a few, as well as Warhorse Studios and Flying Wild Hog. In the same year, they acquired Coffee Stain Studios and older IP. Most well known for developing the first Goat Simulator and publishing the likes of Deep Rock Galactic and Valheim. Like any big publisher, they were so big they didn't grow organically but by buying out the competition, but acquisitions like this come across as previews for what was to come. By 2019, the company had officially rebranded to Embracer Group, and in February 2020, they purchased Saber Interactive for $525 million, as well as Deca Games in August of the same year. It wasn't until 2021 when Embracer Group really made the headlines. In February, they purchased Aspire, some casual game and Sudoku app developer called EasyBrain, but the big ticket item was the purchase of Gearbox for $1.3 billion. Responsible for such bombs like Alien Colonial Marines, Battle Bomb, and Duke Nukem Forever, but they also make Borderlands.
I have an idea. Oh wow, that's much better.
In August 2021, they acquired 8 more studios, including 3D Realms, Slipgate Ironworks, DigiArt, and Ghost Ship Games. Later in December, they even acquired Dark Horse Media, which includes Dark Horse Comics and their IP, meaning they own the rights to the likes of Hellboy, The Mask, Sin City, Umbrella Academy, and of course, Barbed Wire. On one day, Embracer Group made 5 acquisitions, including the rights to The Lord of the Rings as well as Limited Run Games and Tripwire Interactive. The purchase of the rights to The Lord of the Rings was a big one too, meaning they now control the rights to the movies, TV shows, games, merchandise, stage productions, and theme park rights for the likes of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Unfortunately, their first Lord of the Rings game would be Gollum, a game they probably should have cancelled. But another major purchase would be the acquisition of Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal for $300 million in August 2022. So Embracer owned franchises like Thief, Deus Ex, and Legacy of Kain, but more importantly, they now owned Tomb Raider, which for just $300 million feels like a steal. Just a few months after the purchase in November, mobile game developer Square Enix Montreal was closed to reduce costs. While Embracer was acquiring every studio with a pulse, which includes the likes of app developers, board game companies, comic book media companies, a developer of at-home karaoke machines, alongside game developers, they received a $1 billion investment in June 2022. A further $2 billion was set to be invested into Embracer Group, as there was a verbal agreement in November, but in early 2023, that verbal agreement was actually an empty promise as the deal was scrapped. The rate of acquisitions was simply too fast and aggressive. Surprisingly, what put Embracer Group into debt wasn't the purchase of Saber or Dark Horse or Gearbox, it was the purchase of tabletop game publisher Asmodee for over $3 billion. That purchase pushed Embracer into debt, and according to Saber's co-founder Matthew Karch, they needed the $2 billion deal to clear the debt. Karch also said the deal was meant to cover the development of new installments in the Turok and Jurassic Park series, but the deal ballooned to cover more and more of Embracer's development costs. The investors thought the deal was too risky and walked away. So what did the heads of Embracer do? cut their ridiculous salaries or resigned due to running the company into the ground. Over the course of the next few years, they laid off staff and closed studios. In August 2023, we learnt where the extra $2 billion was supposed to come from, that being Savvy Game Group, a company owned by Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Public Investment Fund. They were the same company that invested $1 billion back in June 2022 as well. After it was revealed, Embracer had to justify why it accepted money from Saudi Arabia, but the fact that this was kept on the down low is fairly telling. The cost-cutting began almost immediately, and like trying to list every acquisition, trying to list every studio affected by the cost-cutting is a task unto itself. Following the disappointing release of the Saints Row reboot, Volition was closed after 20 years of operation. Crystal Dynamics were hit with layoffs as they lost 10 employees. Beamdog saw layoffs of 26 people. Campfire Cabal was reported to have been shut down. They did reopen but confirmed it had been affected by the layoffs. The makers of Pinball FX, Zen Studio, saw 30 people let go. Free Radical was set to close, a studio that was revived in 2014 and working on a new Time Splitters game. By November 2023, Embracer Group had lost 5% of its workforce thanks to all the layoffs and studio closures. All of the cost-cutting had reduced their debt from $2 billion all the way down to $1.5 billion. There were rumours that the developer of Insurgency Sandstorm, New World Interactive, had been closed. Instead, the studio stayed open, but was hit with layoffs. Black Forest Games lost half of their staff, reducing their headcount down to just 50 people, while Eidos Montreal were hit with layoffs in January, losing 97 people. The number of layoffs were up to 1,400 people by February 2024, which was 8% of its workforce, and they had cancelled 29 projects since April 2023. But they haven't quite hit the levels of Xbox layoffs just yet. Saber Interactive was sold to a group of private investors. This deal would include the Satellite Studios and several other studios such as Nimble Giant, 3D Realms, and Sandbox Strategies. All in all, the deal was reportedly worth $500 million, which included nearly 3,000 staff or 21% of their workforce. In the same month, Gearbox Entertainment was sold to Take-Two Interactive. This didn't include all of Gearbox Software, so Embracer retained several of their studios. They bought Gearbox Software for $1.3 billion and sold Gearbox Entertainment for $460 million. In May, Embracer sold Shiver Entertainment to Nintendo. According to Embracer, the restructuring had been finalized, whatever that means. This meant they had reduced their headcount by 4,532 people, which was 21% of their workforce, closing 44 studios and cancelling 80 projects. So the layoffs were certainly over now, right? Well, Pieces Interactive was closed following the release of the Alone in the Dark reboot, a game that had very little hype or marketing push behind it and sold poorly as a result. In the same month, the developer of the Risen and Gothic games, Piranha Bytes, was quietly shut down. There was no statement for this one, Embracer was hoping no one would notice. Easy Brain was sold to Miniclip for $1.2 billion. The news didn't get better for Crystal Dynamics as they were hit with further layoffs of 17 employees. Plus, the Perfect Dark reboot they were co-developing was cancelled by Xbox later in July. Eidos Montreal were hit with more layoffs, losing 75 more staff. Crystal Dynamics saw even more staff laid off in August. With Eidos Montreal ending the year with another round of layoffs, I'm surprised there's anyone left working there or at Crystal Dynamics. At this point, Embracer aren't even announcing layoffs anymore. According to Saber's co-founder Matthew Karch, he takes a sympathetic approach, saying the Embracer CEO and the top brass tried to minimize the layoffs as much as possible, saying he fell on his sword in such a hard way, and I call bullshit. Despite running the company into the ground, cancelling dozens of projects, closing studios, and laying off literally thousands of people, the CEO kept his job. It wasn't until 2025 when he resigned, and he's still a board member for the company. So my best guess is he likely got a huge windfall and even gets a seat at the table. Meanwhile, thousands of developers lose their jobs for being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
How do you sleep at night?
On top of a pile of money with many beautiful ladies.
While the games industry is still highly lucrative, Embracer were one of the many large publishers that have laid off thousands of staff while higher-ups keep their massive salaries. In 2024 alone, the estimated number of layoffs in the gaming industry is 14,600 people. So many workers that were laid off from gaming companies have even left the industry altogether. In 2024, Embracer announced they will be splitting into 3 companies. These were Asmodee Group, Coffee Stain and Friends, and Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, with the last two sounding like knockoff children's TV shows. Asmodee is for tabletop games, Coffee Stain for indie, AA and mobile games, and Middle-earth and Friends will focus on AAA games. They later changed their name to Fellowship Entertainment. Embracer will tell you it's to unlock shareholder value, but this allows the bloat of Embracer to be spread across several different companies that focus on different industries, while also sharing their $1 billion plus worth of debt across 3 companies as well. Embracer don't make the news as much as they did in 2022, which could be down to them splitting into 3 different companies, or because they closed so many studios and cancelled so many projects that there's nothing left to report on.